to shore with our destination. I didn't even do the recap of the episodes, but we all know what's happening. We left the Gecko Islands. We went to Baratier. We got Sanji. We went to Konomi Islands to find Nami. And that's where we clashed with Arlong. The whole time, by the way, Garp's on Luffy's tail. And we didn't even talk about Buggy. He's a thing. He'll come back in the second season, I'm sure. Yeah. But we've been, I should say, Garpa has been trying to talk all 4 episodes about Garp, and I think now is the time. Honestly, I don't think I even need to introduce this. I'm just going to step back and say Garp.
Aww. So as I told you all earlier, the original Straw Hat's a fedora, man. All right, so, a kid's running around the earth wearing some whatever, something about. This is a straw hat. And he learned everything from me. And I am in him. This show is the best. And, everything I've wanted to say about Garp and Luffy, I kind of said earlier in the thing. Here's one thing I do want to say. By making Grandpa a Marine, it puts him in kind of one side of the space that doesn't seem as cool as the pirates, right? But what we never see is the Marines taking care of pirates who are actually harming people, right? So we never get to see that side of being a Marine. What we see is the Marines being bad, the Marines making compromises. And the thing is, if you want, I think Kobe's got it pretty clearly. If you want to help people that can't help themselves, how are you going to do it? And if you've got to fight a violent force to protect them, how are you going to do it? So in the end, Garp aligns himself with that viewpoint. The way they get around it with Luffy is by making the distinction between good pirates and bad pirates, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't really see bad pirates. We get a little bit of it with Mihawk in the background and, but we never really see the Marines doing that job. So I give the writers, I'll give them that. They wanted to do that. In the end, for me, this whole thing is a way to talk about, as in any good writing, relationships. And I love their reverence and respect for dependence. I think one thing we just don't talk enough. We're so excited about becoming individuals in the United States that we don't talk about the fact that I became an individual because of everything everybody else did for me and everything I did to become different from them. Right. Yep. So all that dependence is something that gets built into the structure of a culture that we would call more holistic or relativistic or relational. At the same time, the curse of American culture is those relations are always there. You never escape them. You just pretend you escape them, right? You just pretend you are the people you've come from forever and ever. So I appreciate the honest commitment to dependence that you see celebrated in this show. And I love seeing it all laugh because his prodigy is a badass. It's something we don't see in American television unless it's toxic masculinity, right? Luffy's not toxically masculine, right? And that's why he's such a bizarre character. He's a guy who says, I'm going to beat you up. Yeah, I'm just going to beat you up, but I'm not toxic. That's just not what we see in the United States at all. It's usually, some guy who's going to defend everybody and he's so serious. And I'll stop there. I just appreciate the show's commitment and reverence for dependence because I think that's the authentic case. And I think we fool ourselves quite a bit in the U.S. pretending that we're individuals who are independent.
So Garp's relationship with Luffy is my destination point here, but I want to revisit what Maisha brought up last episode about the conversation between Zeff and Garp. And now that I have sufficiently rewatched it, I want to talk about it a little bit again about Zeff's final lines, and it's something like it's you have to learn when to let go. Yep. It's their turn now. Right. They're ready. and it's something that it's very fascinating to watch these two seasoned
Senseis.
veterans of the Grand Line, yes, senseis, as we said last time, try to come to terms with that. And I think Zeff was just a step ahead in letting Sanji go. Now, the prior episode, Zeff was still there, still couldn't really communicate or let go and say, Sanji, Zeff would never say, I'm keeping you here, you got to go, and I'm holding you back. But the what came out was insulting him and telling him that his cooking is shit and not letting him do what he wants, because he still couldn't, he needed him there and couldn't reconcile the fact that he knew he was holding him back, and that aggression came out at Sanji. But now Garp, a little bit different, but also still, I think, trying to reconcile when to let them go, like you were saying Ray earlier, when to let them fly on their own. Do I keep trying to swoop in, or is this the time, and a little bit different in the metaphor, I think, because Garp beats the crap out of Luffy as this sort of final test, I guess, of his convictions. But I really liked that we got to see Garp sit in a chair across an equal and be told that, hey, there's a point at which you got to not be Garpa anymore, and you got to be Vice Admiral Garp, and Luffy's going to be an aspiring king of the pirates. The younger generation is coming. They're ready. It's their time. You got to step back.
Well, what Garp is thinking is, come get me, kids. Right? In other words, Garp ain't leaving the Grand Line. You want him out? Come get him. What Garp is telling Luffy is, okay, kid, I love you. I love what you've become. And next time we meet, dude, I'm not leaving the Grand Line. Kick me out. And Zeff, so Zeff becoming a chef that is committed to taking care of anybody who's on the sea and needs food is a protector vibe, right? And Garp being in the Marines is a manifestation of a protector vibe. So they're both doing protection, right? The thing is, Garp's on a boat traveling everywhere. So he's not a pirate like Shanks. He's not a pirate like people we won't mention because we don't want to be spoilers, right?
Sure.
So we don't see pirates protecting anybody in this show except Luffy's crew. Luffy's crew is the only ones who call themselves. Now we see Shanks doing a little bit of protecting, right? When those guys fight. But so when Zeff says it's their turn, I think Garp's saying, turn schmurn, bring it on. It's the Grand Line, baby.
He also wasn't ready to let go of Luffy yet. He wasn't sure that he was ready to take on the world in the way that he would need to be. He would need to. But it was a crucial point. I think that was really more for Garp than anything. It was. That's what prepped him to be able to handle Luffy in the way that he did at the end, because he needed somebody, like you said, Rio, his equal. He needed somebody that came from the same place he came from. Because a lot of times that's what, it's the same with us. We find ourselves in situations and circumstances, and, just anybody telling you anything isn't going to necessarily resonate. But if you hear something that profound in the way that what was said to Garp at that time from an equal, or from someone that at least comes from where you come from, that makes a difference. It's like, well, she said it's more powerful. You know what I mean? Because she knows where I come from. That person used to be like me, or whatever. So it was a really strong statement at that point, and prep Garp, I believe, for what happened.
So I do believe, you're right. It prepped Garp. I think what was going on with Zeff's statements where there were two things being said. One thing is, you're old, you got to step down. The other one was, you got to let your kid go. Right? Those are two different things. And so Garp basically said, I ain't leaving the Grand Line. I'm gonna let you go, and here's what that means. And just like Zeff and Zanji had that verbal fight, right? Luffy and Garp had a fist fight.
Sure.
And Garp ain't no chump, man. You know.
I mean, the end there where he goes gumma gumma rocket, and Garp just like puts his hand up.
Yep.
I mean,
I was telling Rio today that so my sister and I used to fight like cats and dogs when we were younger. We still do to this day. And there was this one physical fight that we were having where she was like hitting me, and I was just like, there's not much I can do because I'm the older sister and I'm going to be the one that gets in trouble no matter what here. And so literally I just like sat on the couch and she ran at me and I put my foot up. And she ran into my foot and she flew across the room. And it just like that moment tickled me so much on TV because I was like, oh my gosh, I was Garp in that moment.
Trouble? Did you get in trouble, Kristen?
Probably. I mean, yeah, probably. She got the wind knocked out of her.
Yeah.
I think that fight was one of the ones that we were like, okay, we're not going to talk about this. We're not going to tell mom and dad about this one because we both did things that we weren't very proud of.
Yeah. Exactly.
That happened to you, Kristen. You're the only other person I've ever heard that had a story similar to mine. My brother ran my fist. Now try telling that to your parents.
Ray, would you tell us that story in full?
He gets knocked almost out, but he ran into my fist. It was like, I'm just giving you the short version, but he ran at me, and I did what you did. I said, okay, if you come, okay, whatever. And I held my fist out, and he runs into it like a full-blown clothesline. He just screams and yells and all, and then I get in trouble for it. It's like,
Mom and Dad, you don't understand. This other kid is just stupid, man. Okay.
He ran into my knife.
I salute
He
you.
ran into my knife 10 times.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Never
Sorry,
heard
little
this.
musical kid reference.
I got you.
Anyway,
Yep.
so
I love it.
yeah, it is very cool because that's sort of the resolution of the series and the episode. The climax is Gum Gum battle axe, boom, Arlong, the castle comes down, all of that. Everyone's laughing and smiling. Nami is avenged, the whole thing. But we're not done. The part that comes after the climax is always an interesting part, and that is what we saw, that fight between Garp and Luffy. And it's very fascinating. They crammed a lot into there.
A lot.
And not just that filial relationship, not just resolving Garp's reservations about Luffy, not even hinting that like Luffy is the next Gold Roger, but like they're hinting at things that are coming later. The way that Garp fights, we're seeing things that we're going to see later on as to why Garp, not a devil fruit eater, can hang with someone like Luffy who has these supernatural powers, right? That's going to come later on. Like these are things that are going to be relevant later on in the story. A lot packed in there, and then we start getting all of these foreshadowings of what's going to come in the next seasons, different characters, you know, the mysterious figure smoking the cigars, an alliance between Alvida and Buggy. And one more thing, a little reference that would go unknown unless you're watching the manga, reading the manga, watching the anime. They bring up Jinbei, who is a character that comes later on, another fishman. And I think that's interesting and important to note because it's a contrasting type of fishman. So far we've only seen the one kind, which are the bad guys. Well, that and the maitre d' at Baratier. But we're alluding to a greater world, a larger ocean, the Grand Line and beyond, where that's not all. There are others, and it's funny that they're like, Jinbei is a sellout, or he's one of the seven warlords or whatnot, and he's a government dog. And it's funny to see the way that they reacted to the mention of him, because I think it's interesting to see. This might be a couple seasons from now, because I feel like we have a whole set of characters we're about to meet that everyone is just like chomping at the bit to see Tony Chopper, to see Robin, to see Super Frankie. But yeah, I think I might be jumping the gun a little bit and saying that, like, what's to come, what's going to be at the Grand Line. But any more on Garp that we want to talk about before we sort of wrap up?
No, man, he's old. He just needs to leave.
That's
what I do want to say is this:
might say
the work that they did on Arlong, the attention they paid to the character. This is going to be one of the coolest call outs a couple of seasons from now, because you believe he's a bad guy, even though there's some rationalization in there. You've got it in your head that he's a bad guy because he made the wrong choice under the circumstances. And you're going to, once you start seeing the suffering of people went through, that has an impact on what you want to call good and evil. So I think the work they did with him was brilliant, because I think his story is going to be even bigger when they tell the backstory more clearly. That was good. Those just good writing choices, man, across the board.
I guess there's something else to the fact that people talk a lot about bullying. I'm like, bullies aren't born, they're made. Like, the circumstances that produced this person. It's not like he just came out of the,
Absolutely.
Right? You know what I mean? So if anything, it leads to the fact that, or explains the fact that there's always more to the story.
Yep.
Yeah, well said.
And in terms of a series based on a shonen manga, there's always going to be a worse guy. So Arlong being a bully that was made into what he is, a result, a product of a circumstance. Trust me, we're so early in this story.
Yeah.
There are going to be so much worse characters with so many more problems and so many more poorly resolved issues that express themselves in a villainous way. So we're gonna have plenty more to talk about with villains.
And for you to be for a writer, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I was very happy that my favorite villain or adversary was back, and what was his line? A drink would be good, or
mind a drink, or something.
A drink would be great, or whatever he says, and he just says it so. I just love his line readings. They're so good.
But we can even talk about the subtlety of the acting in that scene, because his lines were delivered a bit more on edge in that scene. They were delivered a little faster, and it wasn't that he was nervous; is that he wasn't putting up the same slow front in front of Shanks that he put up in front of everybody. So to pay that much attention to the character, to make his whole scene subtle in relation.
Are we talking Mihawk?
I think a drink would be nice. I think he says.
Would be nice.
I was thinking about him earlier when you were talking about the pirates, and I was like, there seemed to be this underlying, and it's going to maybe sound strange, and you tell me if you think otherwise, but there seemed this underlying nobility about pirates that they when you look at Luffy and how they all are, and then you look at Mihawk. I mean, he could have killed Zoro, should have killed him. I mean, that was what Zoro was asking for, and then he just, no, what happened here was enough. You get stronger and come back. And then he could have killed Luffy. He could have killed them all. I mean, he was sent to get Luffy to begin with. And it's like, no, and he goes back to Garp. No, it's not going to be that way. There's a whole nother thing he sees coming out, out of this whole, it's like, and then too, I mean, I imagine there's more, because I don't really remember. I do remember that interaction with him and Shanks. I don't remember if he actually, I think if he knew, did he know that Luffy was his?
He did. He says to Shanks, the boy that you had mentioned before, I encountered him.
Yes. So, it's like he had a certain respect, through this whole thing. I mean, he was put his opposition while knowing Shanks, knowing all of this backstory. Like, I mean, it was a certain line of nobility with him that I liked a lot, as powerful as he was,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, keeping the conversation going because I'm only at episode 160 of the anime, and so I've had
Episode 4.
Okay, I've had a certain view of the pirates, and if it turns out that the pirates are a sense of a sort of nobility structure, genetic handing down, if that's what it ends up being, versus the world government. I mean, that's just an interesting tension that there's a lot of writing space in. So I look forward to the idea that the pirates are basically sort of an anti-constitutional, we don't want our behavioral code written because it dishonors me that you have to write how I should behave, which is, by the way, precisely how the South was able to maintain slave culture for the hundreds of years were, because you didn't write it down. It was against my honor. So if that's what's going on with the pirates, that would be amazing. And if it's not, then I just said something that doesn't matter, and we'll go on from there. I'll be surprised.
There is a code. There are many codes, and I think that that's part of what defines the pirates that are on Luffy's side and the pirates that are inimical to the Straw Hat crew. Is the contrast in the code. And you'll see some are adversarial at times and sometimes allied, depending on the circumstance, and that's based on their code, which doesn't necessarily align with Luffy's depending on the situation. But if the circumstances provide, they are on the same side for that circumstance.
Gotcha. Fantastic.
Just briefly, this is a bit of insight into street life in terms of that way of seeing. A lot of people think that bad guys are just bad guys and that's it. And I come out of the gang era, and the last, what I call the last great gang era in terms of what was out there culturally, the Crips, the Bloods, all those different things that were out there. And a lot of people, that was so true to form to me. And that's one of the things that I noticed. I'm like, okay, there is a code in the way things work. It's like otherwise you have anarchy. And when you see things in society where things, people seem to just do these random acts of violence, a lot of things, and they've always been, moments where things like that happen. But there's always been a code. It's like, you do not cross this line, or you don't do this, or this is what we will do. And and I'll see it in this aspect. A lot of times you'd see, and I was a former athlete, you'd see people getting ready to make it and go a certain direction, and you'd have a gang that may control a territory, pirates, so to speak. And it's like, all right, well, this person, people think that they would call that group or those kids that, seem to be, that are getting ready to make it in whatever sport or whatever they're getting ready to accomplish, you would think that the gang would call them and say, no, you're going to be with us and live in the streets and be this way, these bad people. But actually, that's not the way it was. It was more like the way Shanks did Luffy. No, you're going to go do this, it's or like, even the way Garp was, no, you're going to be a Marine. And in that case, in the streets, it's like, no, you're going to go and play basketball. You're going to be one that's going to make it out, live this life. And this is the way things are here. And they would tell other gangs and other people, don't mess with these kids because they're going to make it out. And I could there are definitive stories that I could tell you about that these things happen. And so I like it. It's very real in that aspect. And people who aren't connected to that or may not have had that experience, that's a very real thing in the world.
And that rings true with Garp, with Shanks. Clearly, Shanks talked to Mihawk about a little kid that'll have my straw hat. And when you see him, watch out for him. And Garp with Nezumi, he's like, they will taste the steel of my blade. Garp, you will do no such thing. Right?
Exactly.
You will not touch that kid.
That's real, man. That's real.
Yeah, I get it. That's awesome.
So, Ray, while you weren't noticing, the four of us took a behind-the-scenes vote, and you are an official member of the One Piece crew. So welcome to the crew.
Whoa, thank you.
But what we got to do now is figure out what's his role on the ship, right? Now, it would be an insult to just call him the voice, right? I mean, it would be cool, but it would be an insult. But I think the ship's storyteller. I mean, he's told some fantastic stories tonight. So I'm gonna nominate him for the ship Storyteller. Everybody in favor or contra votes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Storyteller, archivist, whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't have to accept the invitation in public. You can write me later if you it's up to you.
Message in a bottle.
I appreciate the fact that you all have considered it.
That's called grace right there, man. Well done. So
Amazing.
I got to tell you guys, we're bringing this event for the One Piece crew to an end. I got to tell you all, this has been a fantastic experience, a fantastic journey. Y'all know I love to talk, and I love the fact that we just all keep talking. And hopefully someone out there hears it and wants more. If you do want more, feel free to comment on this episode on the YouTube page. And if you do that, when we get enough that we think will give us at least 15 minutes, we'll get together and we'll talk about your comment and we'll post it, because YouTube doesn't care how long it is. So again, thanks to all my crew members for joining me for this fantastic voyage. I want to give a special thanks to Ray for joining us tonight. Ray, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, please. So, Ray, do you have any upcoming gigs you want to tell us about?
There is I will be in Las Vegas for a convention. It is a cosplay expo, and I'm surprised I actually remembered the title. Yes, the cosplay expo in Las Vegas on December 7th. Actually December 8th through the 10th. So I'll be there, signing autographs, taking pictures, meeting all the great cosplayers, which is a really cool thing because we don't, as voice actors, get to branch out and do much unless we are called to these types of events. A lot of times we don't even get to meet each other, except
Yeah.
So it's a very isolated business. Took me 2 years to get used to that because I'm a people person. So yeah, it's a very isolated business. But yes, I'll be there. Also, I do post on what now X, is weird to say still, but on X, used to be formerly known as Twitter. I'm under Hurd. I'm also on TikTok. You could follow me there at Ray Hurd 2, and also on Instagram at Ray Hurd voice_actor.
Well, fantastic. And once again, thanks for being here. You're going to be able to actually have an opportunity, not you, but anybody out in the world there has the opportunity to watch the One Piece crew live as part of what's called CasaCon. Just type CasaCon into the Google machine. You'll see it posted. You see the schedule. We're going to be doing an hour-long gig Sunday, December 17th from 4 to 5 p.m., where we're going to do what we've been doing here for what'll now be about 4 or 5 hours, which is discussing this amazing show and all the great things it does for us and for our lives. So before we check out here, crew members, I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell everyone where they can find you on social media, and we will start with Rio.
Absolutely. You can find me on most social media under my handle, I Know Rio. Do you know Rio? Because I do not. You can also Google me if you want. I do not take responsibility for the results.
Such a Grand Line vibe right there. Absolutely. I don't know Rio either. Go to the Grand Line and find out. Rio, it's been an absolute blast. Thanks for all the navigating. Truly appreciated. And we're going to go on to Maisha now.
Hi, everyone. Again, I actually don't have that many public appearances in terms of social media. I have a lot of private accounts, but those are very private. So the only public thing that I have is my LinkedIn, and that's Maisha Basin Arti. That's the name that you were seeing on the bottom of my face. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's where you can find me. Thank you.
Well, Maisha, thank you for all the behind the scenes enforcing. They don't show up in the clips. Maybe one of these days we'll do a blooper reel and show images of you slapping us around and making us do lines over. But I signed an NDA, so I probably already violated it. Right? But thanks for all your insights. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you Kristen, for having me.
Oh, please. Absolute blast. Yeah. Kristen, how about you?
Yes. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Funsized Feral, or you can find me at Kristen Farrell Realtor on both of those platforms as well. I try to share content every day.
Well, Kristen, we very much appreciate you being on the crew.
I've loved every second.
we got to do something where we can taste that food, right? You are the chef.
Yes.
I am. Yeah.
Chicago's not that far from normal, so maybe
It's
we'll
not.
work something out where we meet you guys in the
Yeah.
city for
It's
dinner.
very
at some
far
point.
from normal, but not in distance.
Well, man, there's nothing better than being on a plane. Where are you headed? Oh man, I'm going back to normal.
Normal.
It's just the coolest line in the
I
world.
was just near there in Bloomington. I was in
Yeah,
Bloomington.
you were.
Carlos Ellis Rocky, he wore a shirt saying normal, we're close to normal Illinois. So yes, I was just there not too long ago.
Yeah, you were at Midwest Toy and
That's right.
Comic
That's
Expo where we met. Exactly. Very fortuitous event.
Yes.
So there it is. From all of us to all of you, big hugs. And remember, to the grand line. Bye-bye. What other shows would you like to see the One Piece crew discuss? Leave a comment or send an email to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com. Until then, smooth sailing to all. Zombie Scotty.
We are